What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we're going to go through my updated draft. This will probably be the final draft video specific to my personal team anyway, before we start the team selection video series next week. That will run all the way from game week 1 to game week 38, and every week I'll give you my thoughts on my own team, transfer plans, captaincy, and stuff like that. So if you don't want to miss out on that, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you're liking these videos, of course, hit that like button as well. Now, this draft has changed a little bit since the last one. That was a one premium player draft. A lot of people didn't like it, even though I think there's quite a lot of value to be had. This one is probably a little bit closer to what the team will look like next Friday when we get to the deadline. There's still some players I'm unsure about, and I'll talk about that as I go. And there's also a list of players that might still get into the team. We still have at least one pre-season game left for most clubs as well. So there's lots more information to be taken into account. I'll talk through it throughout this video. Like I said, hit that like button, hit subscribe, and let's jump into it. So let's start off with the defense and goalkeeper first of all. Now, one of the things that has changed a little bit from the other drafts I've put out, and also when I've been playing around with my team when I've not been recording videos as well, is I've gone from two Chelsea defensive options. Quite often it's been James and Chilwell, sometimes James and Mendy in goal as well, to just having Reece James. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. I have slight doubts over whether Ben Chilwell will be fully fit to start the season. As I said in the intro, we still have a final pre-season game to go for most clubs. We'll see how much he plays. We'll see what Tuchel says after the game. We'll also see what he says in the press conference before game week 1 as well. But when I look at the 3 games so far, Chilwell has played 45 minutes twice. Even Marcus Alonso has played 45 minutes 3 times. And someone like Reece James, for example, played 45, 45, and then 73 minutes in the last game that they had as well. So I'm just slightly worried that Ben Chilwell might be a little bit behind the rest of the guys in terms of fitness. And if he's any way a doubt for game week 1, I just won't go with him. The reason I've not got Mendy, even though he's a little bit cheaper than Ederson, is because one, I think Man City defence is just better and the opening fixtures are pretty decent as well. But Tuchel's making a lot of kind of negative comments about Chelsea in general. Now, sometimes it's mostly about the attack, and now in the final third they're not looking good. But it doesn't inspire that much confidence, and probably subconsciously, them getting beaten 4-0 by Arsenal is not great to see in pre-season. Pre-season results, I know we talk a lot about how they don't matter, but I think it's very hard to completely ignore that. And do I still want to double up on Chelsea, or am I better off doubling up with someone like Man City instead? That's the way I've gone right now. So I still really like Reece James as an option. I think they're going to play with a back 3 from the off. I don't think they're going to convert to a back 4 anytime soon, and therefore he is super attacking. It's just whether or not I put another Chelsea defender with him, and right now I've opted to not do that. With Man City, I just look at those opening fixtures. Like West Ham away, they could get a clean sheet there. It's not the easiest game, but it's possible. After that, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest, Villa away, then Spurs at home, which is difficult, but then it's Wolves away. So out of the first 8 fixtures, the toughest games are game week 7, Spurs at home, and game week 1, West Ham away. Outside of that, there's plenty of clean sheets up for grabs, which is why I've got Cancelo, who I don't think's been in a single draft apart from the one premium draft so far. But the closer we get to game week 1, the more and more I think I've got to have him in, because I don't think no matter what left backs come in or full backs in general, I think he'll play every game, because I think he's so important to not necessarily every game because he's a Man City player, but you know what I mean. I think he's going to be first choice 11 and start more often than not. And I have paired him with Ederson because he's the cheapest way into a nailed defender in the Man City team. I think Walker and Ake for 5 million might be options. My main worry is they might be short-term options. At least with Ederson, I'm not having to use a transfer unless he gets injured. The one thing I will say is, do I want to spend 5.5 million on my goalkeeper? I'm not sure yet. And if it comes to a point where I need to upgrade one of my outfield players because there's someone else I prefer instead, Ederson will probably be the first place that gets chopped. And if I don't go for Mendy, it will probably be Ramsdale at the 5 million options, because I don't think I think the 5 million Arsenal defenders are good, But I think Ramsdale is pretty assured, right? There's no worries about rotation. Like if Ben White's playing right back and Saliba and Gabriel are playing centre back, and then suddenly Tomiyasu comes back, which of the two of the three will play centre back? I'm assuming Gabriel is pretty nailed on, but I just don't want that kind of hassle early on. So I'd probably just go to Ramsdale. Otherwise, I'll probably just cut him all the way to a 4.5 million goalkeeper instead. Other players in the defence, Trent, obviously in every single draft, don't need to talk about him. And then I've got Johnny in there as a 4.5 4.5. Now, a lot of people have got Nico Williams, and I could go for him instead of Dunk on the bench and go for a 5 million defender. But I kind of like the idea of rotating two 4.5s if the fixtures look good. And also, it does give me another bench option along with Andreas Pereira. I think I'm okay with having a 4.5 million pound forward just, rotting on the bench, not going to play. But having just Andreas Pereira might be a little bit short. I think having a 4.5 million defender as well looks pretty good. But that is one of the places that I could change. I could go Dunk to Nico Williams and have a £4 million player on the bench, and then go up to a £5 million defender. But there's not too many right now that take my fancy, unless Doherty becomes an option at Spurs, and I just don't see that happening. So we're on a 4 at the back at the moment. We've got that premium goalkeeper in goal. I don't know if it will last, but I think it looks pretty good. Okay, so adding in the midfield, one player I've kind of been put off a little bit from owning is Leon Bailey. The main reason for that is either he goes on as a better bench option than Andreas Pereira, but he costs 0.5 million more, and I'm not fully convinced he is a better bench option, or I put him into my actual midfield, downgrade from Neto to save 0.5 million, or downgrade from Martinelli to save a whole million, but then I'd use that money to upgrade my bench just in case Leon Bailey loses his place and I need to rotate him, and I just don't think it's worth having in the squad for that reason. The other thing is, the fixtures for Villa, again, I've talked about this before, I don't really rate them that highly from an attacking point of view. The first two are okay, Bournemouth and Everton, and maybe he'll get good points there, he'll remain in the team and keep doing well. But if he doesn't, the fixtures from game week 3 onwards are not great for an attacker. So I've taken him out the side, and Andreas Pereira is just going to be my bench option. Like, he's going to, for anyone that's not on a 5-man midfield, they're going to have Andreas Pereira in the team. He's almost essential at 4.5, I think, even if you don't play him that much. The rest of the midfield there now that are actually in the squad, Luis Diaz is in there. I think he is going to be my £8 million midfielder. The reason I've not gone for Saka is because I've got other Arsenal attackers and I don't necessarily want all my eggs in one basket. And then it comes down to combinations. So if I thought that Robertson was a much better option than Cancelo, then I could have Mason Mount instead. But as a combo, Cancelo and Diaz versus Robertson and Mason Mount, I think I prefer the way I've got it there. And I don't like going without 3 Liverpool players for much of the season because they're just so good, right? And they don't have as much rotation as someone like Man City might do. And also, I'm kind of okay with having 2 Man City defensive options because although they have got a lot of players that will score decent points in attack, it's very difficult to necessarily get the right one at the right time. And someone like Mahrez could be brilliant, but it could be Foden that's brilliant from the off. It could be Jack Grealish. And if I'm not that sure, I'd rather just double up on the City defence and just have 2 Liverpool attackers instead, who I think will get pretty good minutes. Jack Grealish is probably the closest Man City midfielder to get in this team. Like, Martinelli could be upgraded to Grealish with Edison going down to a 4.5, but I'm not sure if Grealish's minutes are going to be any better than Martinelli. And for 6 million, I think he could be extremely good value, which is why he's in. You know about Neto already, 5.5 million. I still don't think there's a better option for that price. And I do really like the Wolves fixtures. I've said before, they're probably slightly better from an attacking point of view than a defensive point of view. But with Johnny, I can rotate him with Dunk for some of those kind of more difficult fixtures that Wolves might have. So that's how the squad's looking right now for defensive midfield. We're in a 4-4-2 formation. I don't really see too many other midfielders coming in. Like, Rashford is another one that might make it. Grealish I already spoke about. And then a different £8 million midfielder. But I'm not sure there's many other players that I'm looking at. Like, someone like Son is brilliant, but I'm going to have Saka over him. He's going to be my captain for game week 1. That's pretty much done. So up front, I've got Gabriel Jesus and Harry Kane. I'm pretty sure that Jesus will make it into my game week 1 side by the time we get to the deadline. I quite like the idea of having him and Andreas Pereira instead of another £8 million midfielder and a 4.5 million dead spot. Because right now, none of the 4.5 million forwards are actually going to get any minutes. So this way round, I get another bench option. And I don't think I'm 100% convinced that the likes of Saka and Mason Mount are definitely better options than Jesus. And he didn't go into my team based on ownership, but at the time of recording, he's higher owned than Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold at 64.1%, which is pretty crazy. So he might not have gone into my team based on ownership, but I would question my decision to take him out based on that ownership. I'd have to be 100% sure that the £8 million midfielders and then one less player on my bench who's actually going to play is a better option. I just don't think it is. So I think Gabriel Jesus will probably stay in the side. With Harry Kane, it's tight between him and Haaland. My first draft had Kane. Every single draft since then's had Haaland, and now I'm back to Harry Kane, and it's a tight call. It's going to go right down to the deadline. A big question mark will be who I want to captain in game week 2, and a big thing will be what Haaland does against Liverpool in the Community Shield. If for some reason, right, he doesn't start that game, or he does start but he gets hooked off at like 60 minutes or something like that, that would put some question marks over him as an option to start the season. Whereas with Harry Kane, you know he's going to play, you know he's going to play 80 to 90 minutes, you know he's definitely got penalties. There's a lot of pros for him. Plus, I also think that he and Son and most of that Spurs team have had a great pre-season. I'm sure Man City are going to smash it from the start, but in terms of knowing exactly who's going to play for Spurs, you know who it's going to be, and there's lots of pluses for Harry Kane. The biggest kind of mark against him, right, the biggest negative is that game week 2 fixture against Chelsea. I've talked about it a lot, but it is playing on my mind quite a bit. Haaland gets to play Bournemouth, and if he does start against West Ham, especially if he does well, like goal and assist, 2 goals, whatever it is against West Ham, I'm going to be finding it very difficult to watch Man City against Bournemouth without him in my team. And I know some people will say, well, you can just make the transfer. But if that happens and Haaland does well in game week 1, his price will go up pretty quick. People will make that swap very early on because there'll be a lot of active managers between game week 1 and 2. Whereas for me, someone that likes to wait to make their transfers till the end of the week, I'm going to be put off doing Kane to Haaland too early, and that might price me out of it. So I might be stuck with Kane. With game week 2, though, Salah's got Palace at home, and I think he's a perfectly viable captain. And I think for game week 3 and 4, Kane's got Wolves at home and Nottingham Forest away. Haaland's got Newcastle away and Crystal Palace at home. They're not bad fixtures by any means, but I think if it wasn't for that Chelsea fixture in game week 2, I probably would just be on Harry Kane and not really questioning it. It all comes down to that captaincy. So I can see Haaland getting back into my team. If he starts against Liverpool, does really well, and then he's fit to start game week 1, I find it difficult not to switch back. But as it stands, I've got way less doubts about Harry Kane. And like I said, we just know what he's all about. So he's the one that's in there right now. So I'm on a 4-4-2. I did say on my first draft video, I thought that 4-4-2 might be where I end up because you get that extra 4.5 million defender. You know, you've only got one dead spot on your bench with the forward if we discount the goalkeeper. And overall, the balance looks pretty good, right? There's loads of good options in there, but there might be a bit of tinkering we can do. So that is the team as it stands right now. But if you want to hear me talk through some changes, I'm going to do that as well. Okay, so this is that team that I just showed you, right? So some of the changes that we could make would probably be to the goalkeeper and the midfield. I mean, one change I could obviously make is Kane to Haaland. That could happen. I think Haaland is definitely high up on my list of players I'd like to fit in. Ederson down to someone like Ramsdale. I think he probably is, unless I really want double Chelsea defence, which I'm not sure I do right now. I think Ramsdale's probably the 5 million goalkeeper I would go with. And then I've got 0.5 million to spend, which could end up being Martinelli to Marcus Rashford. Now, as it stands right now, I think that Martinelli is going to start on that left for Arsenal. And I think his minutes won't necessarily be assured, but I think they'll be pretty good to start the season. And he should start most games, although he will probably come off early. With Rashford and Man United, I'm a little bit more cautious than a lot of people. But if Ronaldo is still having, you know, there's still those Ronaldo issues where we don't know if he's staying or going, or the club say he's gone, or he keeps saying he wants to go, then I don't think he's going to start the season. I think it will be Rashford, Martial and Sancho in that front three. We'll have to wait and see if any other transfers come about. There's still talk that they're trying to buy Anthony from Ajax. If he comes in, that's another attacker that can play in that front three. Sancho could then maybe move to the left. That then puts Rashford in a position where he's competing with Martial or competing with Sancho on the left. And it gets a little bit tricky, right? So I think Man United, the three Man United players, Rashford, Sancho and Martial, will probably be good to start the season, but it could be like after one or two fixtures they're starting to get rotated, and that worries me a little bit. But that is one of the ways that I could get all the way up to Rashford from Martinelli. I don't really have any plans to change Neto around that much. Do I think that Rashford or someone like Martinelli is just out and out better than Neto? Possibly, but I do have slight concerns. I think Neto's minutes and starts will be pretty good for the beginning of the season. One other thing that I have looked at as well is not necessarily going 4-4-2, but going 4-3-3 and having Martial. Like I do, if all things were the same, like their price and stuff like that, I do think I prefer Martial playing as a 9 to Rashford off the left, but he is a bit more expensive. So the way down to him would be having to get another 4.5 million midfielder in. There's not really probably going to be a decent second option compared to Andreas Pereira. They're not going to play that often anyway, so I'll just put anyone in for now. And then obviously you've got to shave 0.5 million off, so I would have to go down to a 4.5 million goalkeeper. Still not completely sure who I would go for. Probably Sanchez, but Meslier is definitely an option as well. And then that would be kind of a 4-3-3. So you would play Cancelo, Trent and James every week, plus one of Dunk or Johnny. Then Neto, Luis Diaz and Salah. And then Jesus, Martial and Haaland up front, or Harry Kane if he stays around. The other option is to keep all the attack and still make that defensive downgrade. So maybe bring in Ramsdale here for Edison, although I do really like the look of double Man City defence. And then one of these two 4.5 million defenders, because we've got 0.5 to spend, Johnny or Dunk, could be upgraded to a 5 million instead. Someone like Trippier, one of the kind of Spurs defenders. Probably not an Arsenal defender, because I wouldn't want double Arsenal defence, I don't think. But there's options there. The other thing as well is just to go to a 4.5. Let's just put Melly in just for the hell of it right now. And then one of them could be upgraded to a 5.5. But realistically, there's not too many options there unless Perisic is going to start game week 1. And I've still got slight doubts around that. The other 5 million keeper defending, by the way, could be Ake or Walker. So that's some of the changes that I think I could make to this team. There's definitely plenty of players that I'd love to get in. Jack Grealish is another one. But as it stands right now, we're in a 4-4-2. And that's what it's looking like. Let me know below and let me know if you think it was better than the one premium draft. There we go, that was my updated draft. If you did enjoy that, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button as well if you haven't already. We are less than 20,000 subscribers away from getting that 300k mark before the game week 1 deadline. I still have some content planned for this weekend as well. I will be doing another rating your team video, so make sure you're following me on Twitter. All links to follow me, again, are in the description below as well. And then next week, we'll start up more of the regular content, okay? So we'll do some what's happening pre-season stuff. There's team selection, game week preview, captaincy, deadline stream, of course, which I'm really looking forward to. So loads more to come, but thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please do hit that like button, hit subscribe, and I'll catch you again soon.